Hello everybody, welcome back. I've got the finals games of Sorcery Fest here. I have Felix and Geoffrey here talking about the event and their finals. More of a casual conversation, a lot of more nuanced tips and tricks about the two decks. At the end of this video, I will have the most popular cards and stats breakdown. In the description, I will have links to the Sorcerer's Summit if you are looking for stats and files for this event. I will also link the stream if you are looking for more a turn-by-turn discussion. Let's get into it. All right, welcome, guys. I think we have some of the best EU players here constructed. Geoffrey and Felix, Steam Aggro and Archimago would be about an accurate statement, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been on Archimago for a while. Felix, obviously Steam Druid for a while as well, even though you were really close to playing Archimago for that tournament.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's kind of like our pet avatars, if that's fair to say, or at least for me. I think for you too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there were any surprises from our opponents when they saw the decks.
Yep.
Great. Geoffrey, you're on Archimago Air Earth, right? Nothing, no fire or anything?
Oh, Air Earth Fire.
Oh, yeah, all three color, okay. Are you doing the full spell package, or do you have like the little mid-range package in there too?
Define mid-range package?
Like, there's the list that Kyle kind of and Moth are playing that are like vampires, kettle top, and
it's the
like 12
American
minions.
way. We call it the American way.
The American Archimago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on kettle tops, but I'm not playing the vampires or the Galahad or the Titans.
Gotcha.
So yeah, in the middle.
And then Felix, your Steam aggro is pretty standard, or anything specifically different that you made?
Yeah, I think it's like 99% the cards that I also had in the summit back in February. I think there were like slight changes. Unfortunately, the snowball had to go for lava flow, for example. Yeah, just like minor tweaks that make the matchup a little better into Magoo without like being like dropping too many good cards against the mid-range or more like creature-heavy decks.
All right. And then Felix, going into this, you probably tested against Geoffrey too much to have any surprises coming your way. How did you feel going into this?
Like, to be being very honest, just the fact that we had to play a best of 3 kind of made me like, I was almost like resigning to the fact that it's like almost impossible to win 2 matches in the best of 3 against Magoo. We played, I think, Geoffrey, is it fair to like at least 60, 70 games, I think.
Yeah, probably.
We tested this, and I do have like winning streaks from time to time where I just have it and he doesn't have it. But that's basically all there is to say. So even if you look at my sideboard, I was pretty aware that chances for me if I meet Geoffrey in the finals, which wasn't like unlikely, I guess, but yeah, my sideboard isn't like really built to play against Magoo. Also, like, there aren't that many great cards that I can bring in that aren't already there. So my best chance for me was basically like hope that like a Magoo player kind of not make it to the final somehow, like has threshold issues, whatever, in another round, and I'm gonna face another deck in the final and can then use my sideboard cuts more efficient, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for the game 1 here, Geoffrey, you were on the play, right?
Yeah, I was actually on the play for the full top 8 because, and I don't love that, but whoever was the higher rank after the round robins decides who goes first. And I was the only 6-0 in the tournament, so I knew going into top 8 that I would start every game, which is very strong.
I don't really love that. Yeah,
it's very
going
strong.
first is so good, especially in Magoo and just in sorcery in general. Just being able to control the tempo is like very important, and so that dice roll is very important.
Yeah,
I would generally agree with you on that. I think actually in the like playing Magoo, sometimes it can be like a little a little plus or basically if the Magoo doesn't have it, it's harder for him to, like, if he's in the spot where he needs like getting cards and getting thresholds, that's kind of where you need to bring the Archimago to beat him. And if he's on the draw, it's more likely that he's like having those issues. But still, yeah, of course.
The rules here were like standard rules, so there was no, second player's cry. So in those cases, I almost always want to go first.
Yeah. And most decks want to go first too, especially Magoo. I think that we've seen that in the most current season of Ira's League is the on the play win rate is like 15% higher. It's nuts.
Yeah. I'm kind of the abnormally, like my Excel spreadsheet that I actually have says that I'm better on the draw with Magoo. But I think that's like fair to say if you're like not that, if you're like a better control player, or it's like easier as a beginner control player to be on the draw.
Yeah, just that extra card does help.
Yep, being more reactive than proactive.
So we could go on and on about Magoo being Magoo. How did the play feel? Like, I haven't done the stats yet as the recording of this, like percentages of cards played and whatnot, but I will. How did the meta feel overall? Diverse, pretty narrow, a lot of Steam Druid, a lot of Fire Water out there. I don't know, anything you guys noticed playing in an event?
Yeah, I think the overall field was pretty diverse, but as soon as you arrived in like the top tables and the top 8, it was 3 decks really. You had, there was one Archimago, which was me. I think we were 5 in total, but I don't think the others did particularly well. And then I mostly encountered either Sorcerer Steam or Steam Druids from like round 4 onwards, I think. There was one Fury Road in the quarterfinal, which was interesting. Yeah, but overall, I think people have leveled up a lot since Siege at the Core. And I don't know if it's like people actually leveling up or just because of the lull. Some of the more casual players might have dropped in, since December when Siege at the Core was held. But there was no easy game in this tournament. Like every game was fairly competitive,
tough,
from round 1 to round 6. Yeah, which was a big surprise for me.
Yeah, same for me. I don't think my first one was against a Templar player that conceded on turn 4, even though he started off with a Ring of Morrigan, which was like very scary. But I think that's the only game that was like not like tough knuckles in terms of like my opponent. Like I think like all my opponents were at least decent players. So it was like quite hard to actually get there. Yeah.
Felix, did you run into any other Archimagos other than Geoffrey, or is?
Fortunately not. It was like pretty funny. I think we both went 5-0, and then we couldn't dodge each other anymore in rounds, so we had to play. We had to play the last one in the Swiss, and if I recall it correctly, I think there was just one other Magoo player, the Italian guy. I forgot his name actually. He's also a great player, but he was a little bit unlucky playing some like. I think he got 4 and 2, didn't make it to the top cut because of like some weird stuff. I'm not sure.
Some breakers, weird ranking.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm very interested. Like when we had our event, we banned Archimago in the ring, and I think the ring had a larger impact overall because 100% of decks play the ring and not 100% of people play Archimago. I do really think the ring stifles diversity in deck building for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a ring ban. Archimago ban I think would shake things quite a lot, and I haven't thought about what the meta would look like if that was the case. The struggle facing Archimago, right, and I'm sure Felix will agree, is there's not that many players playing it. And it's a great deck, but like, do you want to tune your deck to be better against Archimago, even though you might not face any? That's a tough proposition, right?
Exactly. That was the balance that I had to like, which like I think that's basically the reason why Steam Druid is like a viable choice currently, because it actually has game into Magoo. You can win some games, and you're still okayish to decent against most other decks, I would say. And for example, if you're playing like I say like most Earth Source or in general probably don't stand a chance against Magoos. But as Geoffrey already said, there was like 60 plus players, and there were like 4 Magoos, 5 Magoos, and 2 of them were like good players. Like I won't say like, but like good to a level where they have a chance of reaching like the final top 8 at least.
Yeah, Magoo, I don't want to say it is a harder deck to play because you have to play it differently than what you kind of are accustomed to with sorcery. And so I think where a lot of people see success against Archimago is playing against Archimago players that need more reps or just more practice in how to play Archimago. It does play differently.
Absolutely.
But if you run into Geoffrey or Kyle or Moth or people who have been playing Magoo and understand how to play the control matchup in Sorcery, the control deck in Sorcery is just hard to play. But once you do, you just kind of run into this brick wall and you go, well, I don't really know what to do here.
Yeah, also like shout out to Geoffrey. I think it's like especially hard in like an in-person event that is 6 Swiss rounds plus the additional KO phase. And the thing is with like for example, my deck is like you have like especially in the early game or up to the mid game, you have like some very important decisions to do. But at some point, it's like not that punishing if you do like a slight mistake. And for Magoo, you have to be like constantly like knowing what's going on and be prepared for everything. And I guess it's pretty tough to do over like a whole day.
I was just so afraid of going to time, like in the rounds at the beginning of the tournament, because I think we had like what 45, 50 minutes per round, which is very reasonable. But my deck, I mean, generally Archimago is pretty slow, but my deck specifically, because I'm now running some of the more mid-rangey threats like the vampires, the Galahad, etc. I have even fewer win cons, and so it takes a while sometimes to close the game. And thankfully, I didn't go to time, but it was pretty close a couple times.
Yeah, when I've
that was like one of.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, that was one of the reasons why, like, for more. I mean, it wasn't like a casual event, but it wasn't like a crossroads or anything. Why I decided to not bring Magoo, because basically I wanted to avoid like playing the first maybe 1 or 2 rounds that are maybe a little bit more easy against like beginners that kind of like slow roll, and you don't. I mean, with Steam Druid you can just steal a win very quickly, snag it, and with Magoo you kind of have to wait for the greater rise, right? It's like it doesn't matter how good your opponent is or the deck he's playing.
That's a totally fair reason to bring something other than Archimago, is the time constraint. That is I've gone on record saying I'm going to take Archimago to Gen Con, and that's the thing I'm worried about too, is like being, like you said, Felix, being focused for 7 rounds or whatever it's going to be, and not going to time. And I totally understand people not wanting to, like, maybe it's not a good tournament deck. I don't know, but I still think it's probably the best deck in the current format, bar none.
Totally agree. Yep, like by far.
Geoffrey, for people wanting to beat Archimago, any tips? Like, the thing I've found is you either rush them down before they can get set up, like you're on the play, you win the dice roll, and you just have this like super aggro hand that you get them down to 4 before they really get turned on. Past that, I have a hard time like dealing with Archimagos that just kind of do stuff and I can't really do anything against.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I don't think there's an easy answer, unfortunately, and I think that's why there's been so many debates about Archimago in general. You have a window in the early game, right? So I think you try and put as much pressure as you can, see whether they can actually handle the pressure. Sometimes they won't be able to. Sometimes they'll stumble on thresholds, or they won't have the Nova or the Earthquake on 5, and you might be able to just close the game very early. If they do manage to stabilize, I think that's when you need to be a little patient and don't necessarily fill out the board right away again. You'll need to start being a bit slower. Put 1 to 2 threats tops, see whether they can handle it, and just be very patient overall. But it's not a good sign. I think if you didn't close the game early enough, and if your deck doesn't have an alpha strike plan, a burrowing on minions and striking for 20 in one turn, or some kind of Jin combo that would do 21 damage in one turn. If you don't have an alpha strike plan and you didn't close the game pretty early, I think you're in for a rough game.
I think that would be a very accurate statement. We've all tried very, very hard to crack this.
Very long as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get the occasional unique a courtesan ties or something that might be able to steal the game. So you have to play it out. But yeah.
And that's the other thing about Steam aggro that's pretty good. Is it's just packed full of crazy uniques. Atlantean Fate on turn, say 6 or something, can really screw over all the threshold and kind of blow open the game that way. Or Rule Earth Duel with all your frogs back here, you can swing for 14 or do something crazy with that. It's just all very very swingy. I guess that's what sorcery is, though. It's very swingy.
Steam Druid is great for that. I think Steam Druid is peak sorcery, because obviously you play to the board, you play minions, etc. But you have so many of those crazy busted uniques or 2 or 3 cards combos that just feel so good when you play them. I think if I were to recommend a deck for people that are looking to pick up a deck for a more competitive event, maybe Steam Druid just great. I love that deck.
Yeah. I have a Steam Druid built that's a lot of fun to play. I will say it does get a little linear with all the charge minions, but it the positional stuff still matters, and you still kind of flipping for Bruin does matter, and timing and site position does matter. So it is a great competitive deck and very straightforward in the sense of just punch your opponent, win with their unique. There is more nuance to it, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess especially, I mean, what you said is pretty much true into Magoo and a few other decks. But I think it's getting, if you face a more experienced player that knows how to answer those red aggro package, it gets a little bit more tricky in general to play the Steam Druid well to be successful. I think currently we still basically the thing that most people play a little bit more aggressive in general. That's kind of what I want to face with the Steam Druid, with all the Tawny, Desert, Trinkets, Wild Imps or Kobolds interactions. I kind of pray for my opponent to play stuff adjacent to my stuff. But as soon as they basically stop doing that and be a little bit more defensive, I'm getting into a weird spot where I kind of have to be way more thoughtful to close the game.
Yeah, and I think that's true for any aggro deck in sorcery. I have a big red aggro deck that does great when I can kind of curve out and do my thing, but I run into issues with Gnome Hollows or Free Cities or these control packages where they can deal with my early threats and just kind of whittle me down from resources. I guess that I asked Geoffrey this. Felix, people playing against Steam Druid, how do you play against Steam Druid to do well? You kind of already mentioned that, play defensive and slow things down, but any other tips for playing against Steam Druid?
Yeah, I guess it's the best thing you can do. The biggest mistake is, as I said earlier, give me the opportunity to interact with your creatures. Because most creatures in my deck are just on the value terms, they have a generous ability to deal damage or have charge or something. But if we like go for pure value, most of them aren't that great. So for example, if you have like a nerf deck that is like stacked with unicorns, you have Amazon warriors, stuff like that. Just don't be adjacent to my sites. Maybe defend like a site.
Make it
Yeah,
hard
more
for
on the
you
back
to
row.
attack, right? Like
Yeah, make it hard for me to
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Make it hard for me to like. Don't give me the opportunity. Like if I have it, just always be aware. Like there could be like next to my Tawny, it could be like a desert. It could be a trinket. It could be like any of the like pinging creatures, whatever. And if you lose your minions to that, that's like exactly what I want.
So this was game one. I think life totals are like 18 to 16. Like it was still a very high life total. And then Felix, I guess you conceded because Geoffrey had a hand of like 6 cards or something.
Yeah, if you see the like the cards that I drawn, it was basically all the stuff that you don't want to see, like Shadow Strikes, Infiltrate, Minor Explosion, Disintegrates, and a Mesmerism at some point. So I was like missing the action card that give me some presence on the field to threaten Magoo, and so it was like, yeah. Like funny thing, I was actually seeing that Geoffrey had to like still figure out the puzzle and how to kill me, and I was like, basically, like I was like from turn 3-4 on, I was pretty sure that I'm gonna lose that. Like there was like no miracle that could have happened. So I was like actually thinking about like maybe I should just drain his energy by like acting like it's a tough spot here for him. But yeah, nah,
Because you
not
have to
really.
remember that like we played the finals at like 10 p.m. maybe
Yeah.
after basically having played sorcery since like 11. So yeah, keeping your energy definitely important. So I don't mind seeing the surrender here and just go to the next game.
Yeah, no. The best way to beat Archimago is to wear your opponent out.
It's honestly like I think that's actually like if you're not like, I mean Geoffrey obviously is like a great player and he practiced a lot, but someone who's or at least doesn't have that much practice with Magoo, it's more likely that he does some mistakes. And as we said earlier with Magoo, if you do like mistakes, they backfire a little harder on that avatar than with other avatars. So sure.
Yeah, and especially if like a tournament setting is much harder than what people would kind of realize. I had my first wake up of like, oh, playing for 8 hours in a row is mentally draining at the Corzin Cup last year. I remember was it round 4 or 5? I was like, I'm fried. I'm dehydrated. I'm hungry. I'm cranky. And it's just like, oh my goodness. I was making silly mistakes. So it is a consideration for sure.
I think it was like 80 degrees, if I remember correctly. We were like,
I think it was like 90 Fahrenheit maybe.
Oh my!
really? All right. Yeah, Jesus, that was
just
great.
a really hot weekend in Europe.
Pretty.
Yep. Yeah.
Bunch of sweaty nerds playing card games.
Exactly.
That's what we're up for. Yep.
That's hilarious.
So we had sideboards available for the finals. I don't think there were any surprises in terms of like what we would bring in and take out. So I don't think the sideboards played a huge role in game 2.
Yeah, so then that's another question. So this was best of 3, top 8. Did sideboards matter in any other games? Like
best of 3, only the finals.
Oh, only finals was best of 3. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So did you guys play 2 or 3 games? I haven't paid attention enough.
2. It's
games,
just 2.
okay. Yeah.
And so you'll see here, that's the mid-range package we're talking about, the vampires, the grapple shot, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I had that in my sideboard. And I think Felix knows it, so I'm not expecting to surprise him. But
well, I mean, we're like basically talking on a daily basis about sorcery. So he never mentioned about like when we talked about the vampires, he always told me how bad they are. Well, or at least, yeah, I was like a little bit surprised, but as you can see, my my sideboard, I didn't decide to like get rid of the disintegrates because I was like a little nervous if it brings in like some creatures, for especially like the vampires. So I just get rid of the mesmerism and the infiltrate and minor explosion, and I brought in the honestly, what was it?
I think it was the
One
herpes.
Servant Scout and 2 Outback
Oh,
Striders.
okay.
It's
Striders. Oh,
a
for
little bit
the more of
whatever.
a like play it back row attack, kind of safe, more
Yeah,
safe.
exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
Which
did you
I never really tried them earlier, but I thought like maybe they're cool. Let's see how it works.
expect the chains main deck? Because I think that might be the one thing I didn't talk to you too much about.
You told me on the day of the event, like before we
Right.
started, so I knew about the thing, but there was like not that much I can do about it because, like, as you guys know, in Water of Fire, you don't have the option to get rid of artifacts, other than like Shadow Strike. But it's a monument, so you cannot really do anything about it. And Atlantean Fate doesn't do stuff because even if you sink it, it's still active, right? So
Yeah.
kind of
So
have to
yeah,
live with the effect.
I guess for context for everyone, I mean, generally, if you look at Magoo, you have to decide: am I going to be Earth Air? Am I going to be Earth Air Fire? Right? There are some versions that like play more around tokens that like go into water, but generally, if you take your standard stock Magoo list, you just have to decide: do I want to splash fire or not? And then once you do, whether you decide to go Earth Air or the Fire Splash, the lists are always going to be about like 90% the same. Just because like there's so many staples that you can't cut: the Common Senses, the Blinks, the Craterize, the Bury, etc., the Divine Healing. There's so many cards that you would have in any version once you've picked your archetype. But the remaining 10% is where you have a bit more freedom to do something different. And so, some people will dedicate that last 10% to a mid-range package, the vampires, the grapple shots. Some people will opt more into more cantrips. Some people will like keep things like a princess and a peace stone to go maybe a little bit faster. And what I tried for this tournament is bring in 2 Chains of Prometheus, which is a very late edition. I think I decided on that like 2 days before the event, and I didn't have time to practice a lot. And a Nimbus Gen. And Nimbus Gen was very much meant for the mirror match. And I was very, very happy about the chains during the event. I think it's a great meta call if you expect a lot of Steam decks, because Water Fire doesn't really have a way to get rid of your artifacts, or at least not in a way that would hurt chains, because you don't hold the chains, so Shadow Strike doesn't do anything. And Atlantean Fate, if the chains are burrowed, you don't care; they're still active. And it did tons of work for this tournament, so I've been really surprised. The Jin, not so much. So I don't know if that one will stay. We'll see.
I was hoping so much in our first game because I knew that you played Jin and you're likely gonna board it out in the second game, that I hit the courtesan ties in the first game to maybe
Yeah.
have the chance to Jin you, but yeah,
In
didn't happen.
the semifinal, which is also on stream, we don't have the footage here because obviously we're talking about the finals. But in the semifinal, I was playing against another Steam Druid, and I had a window to double cast a Feast for Crows, and I think I named Atlantean Fate for the first one, and for the second one I was debating, okay, do I go for the Courtesan Ties, which is one of the cards I can steal the game, or do I go for Shadow Strike? Because at the time I had a ring out, and once Atlantean Fate is gone and Shadow Strike is gone, there's no answer in the Steam Druid's deck for the ring. And greedily I went for the Shadow Strike, and then I shuffled his deck after playing the second Feast for Crows, and I learned after the game that like the way I cut his deck, I put the Courtesan Ties on top.
Oh no.
and so he played it a little bit later in the game, and I had a Jin in hand, and obviously he was able to just play the Jin onto my face, discard my whole hand. I think he did like 15 damage to me, and then he started casting some stuff from the grave, I think, and it got really, really close. And so in the finals against Felix, I was like, okay, as soon as I can, I'm gonna side out the Jin, and I'm gonna name quarters on sides.
The Jins is more of a liability than an actual win con.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I can see that.
By the way, we see like a here on stream like for beginners on Druid, like a maybe a pretty cool sequence that usually you want to like start your actions with Tawny before you do anything else in your turn, because obviously if it dies like here, you can play a side later, bring it back. Also, like, don't give your opponent the information that you have left in your hand. Maybe it's a desert that kills the kettle top, maybe something else. Yeah, just as a side note for like Druid beginners.
Yeah, the sequence of Tawny is very important. I don't know how many times I go, hold on a second, let me reorder my Tawny and land attack. Yeah. No, that's very true.
Also, like, that's like Tawny's probably the reason why Druid is as good as it is. The Brune is cool to have, but usually, like in most games, you don't really need to flip for Brune. It like the willpower really is in the little bird.
Yep. Yeah, our events, my last week's video, our winner, Dalton, his Druid gets to 4 mana and flips. Like, that's his goal. It's just blitz out, and it does, like, have a hard time, like you said, if it runs into, like, Gnome Hollows and, like, things that prevent it from attacking. It does, like, run out of steam, but most other Steam Druid decks, Tawny is the main like value engine. It is trinkets, it is shapeshift targets, it is minion payoff cards.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe in some other lists that one like air with rolling blades or grapple shot, like flipping for Brune is a little bit more attractive. But yeah, in the Steam version, it's like you usually just do it to prevent like if you get on door, just to have like another body, like a bodyguard that protects you. But usually the like the bear, the 4 power never really comes into play most of the time.
He's great for like oh, I'm gonna go to Death's Door this turn, so I'm gonna flip and like have a protection there, or I'm on Death's Door, flip, you have to deal with Bruin first, kind of like that. That's where I found a lot of use for Bruin, for sure.
Yeah. Sometimes you get a Magoo that kind of like makes the math in his head. It's like, okay, I criticize you this turn, bring you to door, and then he's like empty on cards. You flip for Bruin, and then they're like, oh shoot,
I have nothing to deal with this bear. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
It's been so many games where I forgot Bruin was the thing, and I'm like, okay, you're on door, and then he flips, and I'm like, oh shit, forgot about that.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing to consider. Geoffrey, you mentioned it a little bit earlier. This, like, Steam Firewater, doesn't matter if it's Druid, Sorcerer, whatever it is weak to artifacts and auras, a lot of Atlantean Fates. Felix, have you ran into any Enchantress things, or, like, anything that deals
Luckily not.
Okay.
Honestly, I was, like, very afraid of that. Like especially Enchantress, there's like one very good Enchantress player in Europe, and he basically like he farms the Steam Druids and also like from time to time some Magoos, because there's like as you said, you don't have like that many interaction. If there's like a thunderstorm or
a thunderstorm animated hitting you for 3, then 4, and then you're all
an attack kills all the stuff,
Yeah.
and you're on death. Oh, what? And he's like, yeah, that's not that great. Which is funny. I think I played like most of the day mirrors. Like I think 2 times Druid, 2 times Sorcerer, and thanks to Geoffrey, I didn't cut the Flaming Phoenix. I was like always on the fence about that card.
Ascalon Phoenix? Is that what you're saying?
Ascalon Phoenix.
Yeah.
Sorry. But it was like so funny to see that people don't really knew how what is a fire spell. Most people thought it's just magic spells, but turns out it is actually
it is fire ability.
By the way,
yeah.
Yeah, I made like everybody was able to take back their action and like reconsider what to do. I'm not gonna allow that at the next event. No, everybody knows about the card.
Yeah. No, the
Yeah,
Phoenix
Phoenix is so
does steamroll a lot of red aggressive decks because they're all 3-power fire minions, and you just block for free and eat things for free, and all their removal is fire based, and this thing's just like you can't remove it if you're a fire aggro list. It's very good. More of a broad question: how was the event overall? Did you like 2 days of sorcery? Like, what was the most memorable thing? And it sounds like a great time.
3 days. 3 days
3
of
days.
sorcery.
Oh
It
my.
was it was amazing. It was super well run. So it started on Friday. It was an alpha draft on Friday. Constructed event full day Saturday, and then sealed event Sunday. There were 3 artists. I think Jeff Menges, Michał Nagibał, and Matthias Frisk. We got a couple of art reveal for Gothic, so they really went all in. The venue was great. Super well run overall. Like, had tons of fun. And they had a bit of an overall weekend competition where you would earn points at each event. So, you could obviously win the event one day, but if you did really well in like 2 or 3 events, you could be the overall weekend winner. And so that added a little bit of something to follow throughout the weekend, right? Like if you did really well on the first day, then you would look at, okay, who did well, how are they doing the second day, and then that last day there were a couple of candidates for the overall weekend winner, and so obviously they would check on each other and like, did you win, oh shit, you won, okay, I need to win as well.
Yeah, also like real quick, the venues, like I think for the Sorcery Europe events in general, also for the Siege at the Core, for example, but they're like top notch. The city where we were in the Netherlands was like a beautiful like place people make holidays, and we had a pretty cool hotel. Everyone was pretty sweet, and also like the community at this point, there are like so many common faces. Like hanging out after a day, drinking some beers and having fun. It's like really a great gathering. Like the community in Sorcery, I think it's like second to none in TCGs in general.
I couldn't agree more. I think we're all. I think looking at my YouTube analytics, we're all 25 to 40, and we're all very. I don't know, just here for fun, and people are very nice and very welcoming and very warm. Yeah, no, I love the sorcery community. It's one of the best parts for sure. I'm trying to think of more nuanced questions to ask about Archimago and Steam, but it's like been talked to death.
Yeah, it's like I think we talked about like the current state of the competitive environment quite a lot. Yeah, maybe just another commentary on that Magoo might be a little over the top in general. I think we said it earlier. In order to be good with Archimago, you need to be like a very experienced player that brings in like a lot of other soft skill. Like you need to be like concentrated for the whole day. Don't make any mistakes. But if you manage to do that, I think Magoo gets to a win rate like no other deck can have in general. And so yeah, maybe we'll see for the more bigger events in the future, like something like a balance update.
Yeah, we have, I think next steps in Europe is there's our Crossroads at the end of September. And so I think the next step for Felix and I is, okay, what do we bring there? Do we want to make any changes based on what we saw at Sorcery Fest? And if we expect more Magoos, how do you start tweaking the list towards the mirror match? Which is something I like think about all the time, and it never matters.
That's what I've been finding too. Just playing. Yeah.
I spend so much time thinking about the mirror match, and I think I've played one in my life in paper.
Well, I think
Yeah.
at the Siege of the Core, the finals was a mirror match, right?
Yeah, that's the only one.
Yeah. When is the Crossroads for Europe? Is it after October or before?
It's end of September.
End of
So
September.
I think it will not be with Gothic for sure.
Okay, so
Yep.
yeah, like, and this is where I've beaten the drums of seasonal suspensions. Maybe it's because we play too much, but the format at the highest level I feel like is solved, and it's where things kind of get stale, and I don't know if like we're in the minority or that's like the general like sentiment. It's just hard to tell for sure.
I would agree like 100% on that. I do think that we play a little bit too much for sure, and that the whole like sorcery as a competitive game is just not that big in general. And if you have like a smaller play group and one of your friends plays Magoo, you probably really don't really notice that it's that good. Because as we said earlier, you need to kind of play the list that is out there, and you kind of need to like understand the avatar. And for the upcoming Crossroads, I think a Magoo list will win that. I will bet all my money on that. But I do think it's not going to be the avatar that is. There will be probably more Sorcerer and Druids than Magoo.
Yeah, no, I think I would fully agree with that sentiment. Yeah, it's just when he starts winning every single event, not every single event, like 3/4 of them, and top eights every single one of them, and it's just like, all right, what else is coming down the pipeline? It's just like
I would love to see more players like embrace it and actually play it, because then you'd force some of the Magoo players to think about the mirror match more and maybe tweak their list a little bit to be better in the mirror match. And maybe they start sacrificing like percentage point win rate against other matchups in order to be better in the mirror match. And that's a tension that we don't see at all, because like as it is now, if you bring Magoo, you can almost ignore the mirror match. There's just not that many players playing it.
That's I know, Geoffrey. I'll put some words in your mouth. I know you're a non-ban Archimago camp, and is that like the main point of yours? Is like not enough people play it, and so Magoo kind of has a free lunch.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not as non-ban as I used to be. I think
okay.
Sorcery Fest was like another step in the direction of like, okay, that might be a problem. But at that point, like, you're not going to ban it before Gen Con,
No,
right? Like,
no,
you're not going to
it
ask
is
people
locked in.
to, like,
There's no way it's changing at this point.
and then you're after Gen Con, and then you can make the same argument for the European Crossroad, right? Like, you're not going to ban it a month before the European Crossroad. And then you have Gothic right around the corner. So realistically, aren't you just waiting for Gothic, see if it's a problem still? I don't know.
I think that's what's gonna happen. And also like maybe to underline your argument as well. I mean, you basically won like every big European tournament by now, which is also, it's not just the avatar, it is also like the player playing it. And as you said, like there are not that many Magoo players.
Say again, Geoffrey?
Yeah, but the ones that
there hasn't been that many big European tournaments.
There's been 2 of them, and he's won 2 of them, at least.
Yeah, that's two.
Yeah, but also like smaller, like the Fear Legend release in Essen was also.
Oh, that was
like
limited.
A bigger event, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can
By the way,
the same.
if you guys
go ahead.
Sorry, if you guys want to get your limited practice and play against maybe I would just making a bold statement here, but I think Belgium is the country where the best limited player in the world are, and they play every Tuesday on the Siege of the Core Discord. So you might want to hop in, get some dust, and learn how to play limited.
I will echo that statement. The U.S. version of this is Siege of the Core on Wednesday nights, and man, I know just playing not weekly but semi-regularly, I've gotten a lot better at limited. My hot take is the families are better than I ever thought they would. It's like, oh, a 2-mana 2/2, who cares? No, that threshold matters a lot. Yeah.
And improving at limited actually makes you a better constructed player as well. Like there's a ton of
100%.
overlap. Yeah. Can we talk
Yeah,
about
100%.
Can we talk about Nick? Nick, you
Sure.
know, the main guy behind the Sorcerers at the Core Discord. So Nick has been mostly a limited player so far, and he obviously participated in Sorcery Fest. And so a couple months ago, maybe a month ago, he asked for like, oh, could you give me a quick overview of like constructed, like what are the good decks, etc. So just to give you a perspective, like this is very recent for him. And the guy finished third in Sorcery Fest constructed. I'm like, how do you do this in a month? That's crazy. But obviously,
Yeah.
he's a great limited player, and like there's tons of skills that just apply to both. So
Yeah, limited is the most boiled down version of sorcery, and you can say that about most card games. Limited matters. Like it teaches you the fundamentals of like card advantage and trading profitably, and that all carries over to constructed.
yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
If you guys were, I don't think you guys are going to Gen Con. You kind of mentioned it about the crossroads for Europe. What are you going to think about? What did you learn from Sorcery Fest? You kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but what changes in going forward after this event?
I think for me, I would stop considering the mirror match so much. I'll be like, okay, let's drop the shenanigans that are only for the mirror. Just take a well-rounded list that you think is gonna do well against about everything. But I think that's a very Magoo-specific advice.
Yeah.
True.
You taking
For me,
Steam again? Something aggro again, Felix?
I'm not sure. So I do want to have the top 4 Druid foil version
Yep,
for sure.
Yep.
But on the other hand, I think I'm like slowly shifting towards the player that is playing the deck that is one of the most competitive versions. I do like winning. I have to agree on that. And so maybe it's gonna be Magoo. Here's the thing: if I'm not 100% sure if I'm not gonna go to Gen Con. If I go to Gen Con, I'm gonna bring a Druid. If I make top 4 of the Druid, I'll play another Druid at the Crossroad in Europe. If not, I'm gonna go a little bit more safe and play a Magoo, I guess. I'm not sure.
Are you actually considering going to Gen Con?
I mean, it's a 30% chance.
Well,
Like overall,
aren't they sold out?
Yeah, I was going to say, are you aware the main event is sold
0,
out?
I guess.
Things do pop out, like people do drop and they kind of go
Yeah.
fluctuate. So maybe if you could catch one, people do post in the Discord if like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm dropping or something. But yeah, they're sold out currently.
Well, then that's an easy decision to make. Then
You should go. You should go. You should win with Magoo, and that way you're gonna bring Druid to the Europe one where I'm gonna be.
I agree. Yeah. Well, but yeah, maybe one thing on the like European sorcery community as well. I think as Geoffrey said earlier, like the overall performance level of the players was much higher than I expected for or at least the top card for sure. I think there was like hardly any mistakes being done, or at least in the games that I played, and the lists were pretty competitive.
That's really cool to hear.
And yeah, also like the Swiss ones were pretty. Like I had, oh my god, there were like basically no game that was like an easy win. I would say like the game against Sneak, the Belgium guy kind of like played Morgana into Pact with the Devil on the play where he couldn't really like keep up with my speed, and so it was like a little bit more easy for me to win. But all the other games were like, oh my god, it's like so exhausting.
That's really cool to hear. I'm glad the sorcery player base is getting better. That's awesome. wonder, almost done here. Well, Felix, if you do find a ticket to Gen Con, me and CJ have a floor you can sleep on if you wanted to.
There we go. Oh yeah, that's another another takeaway. I was staying basically like a friend of mine was booking the well, you can't call it a hotel. It was an actual old prison where I stayed in Leeuwarden in the Netherlands, and so we were like in prison cells, sleeping to 4 guys. In a prison cell was like not that, like I didn't have the perfect opportunity to get the rest that I need for all the 3 days. So
That's hilarious.
pretty rough.
I was wondering if that was going to come up. I was teasing him every day. I was like, "Oh, you're going back to the prison tonight?" Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty sure.
You weird Europeans.
Meanwhile, I snagged one of the only hotel room because like we were playing in the venue was basically part of the hotel.
Yeah.
And the hotel didn't have that many room. I think they had 5. I think their main business is like the venue and the restaurant. But I snagged one of the only room just above where the tournament was held, and obviously huge advantage. In between rounds, I could go to my room. I had AC in my room. I had water. I had everything. I could drop my stuff, etc. And I was like, I'm very glad I didn't book the prison.
As in a prison cell, we didn't even had like a washroom on our prison cell, so we had to actually go out like one. It wasn't even on the same floor. It was like the worst ever.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Think about what you did.
I can't put that like in my head and not laugh. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and you literally, I was like staying a little bit longer awake, having a beer after each event, and when I came basically back to the prison cell, there was like four guys snoring already in their cells, and I had to like, it was, man. Yeah,
all right, you get it here first.
Shout out to my German fellow guys in the prison. It was hilarious.
That sounds like an experience for sure. Wow. To bring it back to the game, I have 2 questions. First, Felix, what did you think about Swiven Scout in Steam?
I hated it first, and Kyle basically was playing it, and Kyle's like an amazing player, so I was testing it out as well, and turns out it's it is a hidden treasure. Like the Swift Scout is, especially against the Magoo mirror, sometimes if you can play like a Swift Scout, see what's on their hand, and you see, they don't have it, so you can like start pressuring while the Magoo is like now like a little bit more nervous, filtering for their poison or earthquake or whatever. Swift Scout is like very good.
So
Wouldn't cut it.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, maybe not into the mirror, like obviously like bad into kobolds and wildlings, and sometimes information is like not that needed in those matches, but against Magoo it's like one of the best cards, I think.
If you know what you have to play around against Magoo, because you have, visibility of their hands, it's so much easier.
Yeah, and also like make them like we had it in the game you see currently. I didn't really had anything, to be honest. Like I was like not really hitting the uniques or the pressure in general to snack away a game, but I was like at least acting like I had a rule of fool in my hand, and you could have like if I saw Geoffrey basically like struggling with his whole turns, be like, oh my god, that's so much damage. What am I supposed to do? I was like, yeah, it is funny, especially if like the Swiftens got out and you have like perfect information about everything.
Felix does this all the time. He drops some random minions in his back row, and he makes me sweat. I think he has
playing the mind games.
Pool.
Yeah, I like it.
He does this all the time. It works. I think in that game I threw a 50-50 lightning bolt just because I was scared of one minion in the back row because of potential fool.
I have lost. I've lost a couple games as Magoo with ruler fools because I didn't remove a 2/2 or something. I was like, I should have removed that when I had a chance.
Yeah. Well, I think the 50-50 was on Sir Agravain, so if you let it unchecked,
Yep.
it can deal so much damage with Tawny, Ruler, etc. So
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, make them have it sometimes. That's all you can do.
yeah, and then we see, I think that's towards the end of the game, we see a Courtesan, which thankfully is not as bad as the one I had in the semifinal. I think you see a bunch of
his
minions, so
sideboard.
it's a bit awkward for you, yeah.
Yeah, and there was like no wheel window for the courtesan. Like the whole game, I was like, I was pretty sure that you had some sort of minions in your hand because you were like not finishing me off. You were also like holding those cards for like forever at this point almost. Was a bit weird.
Yeah. And then, and that's the moment you know what I sideboarded in, because you hadn't seen the vampires until then.
Yeah.
And then we looked at each other, we're like, you bastard, you knew about this.
You didn't tell me about this. You were lying to me.
Yeah.
But he knew I was going to do this because he also kept the disintegrate. So
Like,
we knew exactly
I got
what was going on.
little PTSD from the Chaos Twister. Can't see that card anymore.
Yeah.
He kind of played like 4 or 5 times against me. It was just so brutal. Like on Tabletop Simulator, that card is kind of balanced, I think. But in like paper sorcery, this card is just unfair if you're as good with it as Geoffrey is.
Yeah, that was my second question. How many times did you play Twister, and did you ever miss with Twister?
I think I played it, I don't know, 8, 9 times maybe, and didn't miss once.
That's terrifying. Okay, maybe I need to start practicing with Twister.
It's such a good card if you're willing to practice just a little bit. And Felix has a funny story of me trying to practice hidden in the corner of the room in the morning of the tournament.
We were very early at the event on Saturday because we wanted to get our cards signed from the artist before we sleeve in our deck, and like everyone was like being social or whatever, and Geoffrey sneaked into like a corner of the big room and practiced the Chaos Twister, which is like, I love the dedication. Let's say it like
No misses. No misses,
yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, guys, congrats on Geoffrey for your second big European tournament win. Felix, you are still a very good constructed player. Congrats on second place. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the tips and tricks. I hope to see you guys at a sorcery event sometime in the future. I don't know.
For sure, man. For sure. Yeah. Maybe at the floor at the hotel room at the Gen Con, when I'm like desperately running around, being nervous to get a slot, asking people if they would like to drop for me to join in.
If you have recommendations, about local prisons, I think Felix is all here.
Yep, some prisons.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you next time.